The bow drill technique is a primitive method for creating fire through friction. The components should be collected from a softwood source like cedar or willow, and they consist of a hearth board, spindle, bearing block, bow, and the tinder nest. I'll be demonstrating how to forage and collect all natural materials for a bow drill friction fire set. Choose and gather the most effective materials while you see them. Always have backup options that can be relied on, as the materials needed to start the bow drill fire may not be in the same area where you stop. Your bow should be from your armpit to your fingertips in length. It should have a slight curve to it and should be stiff and strong. One end should have a Y, while the other has a beaver chew indentation. This will allow for easy cordage to be strung onto the bow. Both components, the spindle and hearth board, should be made from the same type of wood or from different woods of the same hardness. Your spindle should be anywhere from 8 to 12 inches in length, with a slightly sharpened point at one end and a tapered thin point on the other, where it will go into your bearing block. With your hearth board cut out, it should be 8 to 13 inches in length, about a ½ inch thick, and 1 to 2 inches wide to accommodate for your spindle to sit firmly in the center. This is known as the pilot hole. This spot is actually where I burn in the diameter of the spindle into the hearth, as it gives a place for it to sit. With our fat wood bearing block now cut out with a small indentation in the center, once we begin to bow and create friction and heat, the lubricant from the resin inside the bearing block will allow the spindle to glide friction-free. Using whatever cordage you have, we're going to string our bow together, and using just a simple noose knot, we're going to attach the cordage onto the top of our Y, and it will give us a place to bind. Now I'm going to bring the rest of our string down to where we've beaver chewed into our bow, and I'm just going to begin to wrap the remaining cordage around where my hand will sit. And then I'm going to just do a basic overhand knot to tighten this up. I'm just going to take my spindle and I'm going to see how it sits in the bow. And all I'm going to do is place the spindle on the outside of the string, and I'm going to spin the top of the spindle around, and in an upward motion with both ends in my hands, pull up. And that will lock the spindle in place. I'm just using my hands right now, and I'm toughing up the bark and releasing all the fibers inside of the grapevine bark. And that will make it a lot easier once I put an ember into the tinder nest to blow to flame. With the structure of our tinder nest laid out, all that's left to do is use our cedar bark that we shredded off of a tree, and I'm going to tough those fibers up, and I'm going to place that right in the center. And I'm just going to use my finger. I'm going to make a hole down into the tinder nest where I'm going to drop my ember, and then I can blow it to flame. You're going to want to drill until you start to see charred dust and plumes of smoke from the hearth board. The notch should resemble a V or a piece of pie, as it is the carved out section of the hearth board that the dust accumulates and begins to form an ember in. The notch point should run just shy of the center of the burn-in hole. You want to apply a light amount of downward pressure to keep the spindle seated while constantly filling the notch with dust and warming the hearth board. Once the notch is completely filled, you can slowly add more speed and downward pressure, creating more heat and igniting the dust into an ember. You can tap the hearthboard with your spindle to release the ember from the notch, carefully placing the ember into the center of the tinder nest and blowing it to flame. While the bow drill is an incredibly advanced technique, it is also very rewarding. Just knowing that you have the ability to procure a fire source from the natural materials around you will definitely instill confidence.